Brian Adera, who is from the Pioneer Kenya Special Forces officer and a security expert and consultant. Adera is also the spokesman of the Association of Corporate and Industrial Security Management Professionals, that is SCI SMP Kenya, quite a mouthful there. Adela, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Perhaps from your own point of view, being a security expert, can you perhaps tell us your own sentiments, your own observation as to how the security officers acted this time around?
Thank you, Hussein. Let me first take this opportunity to condole with the members of the Republic of Kenya, basically the families and friends of those who sadly lost their lives in this fiasco. It's a very sad one for the country, and of course a happy point and departure from that sadness to me is the fact that this was an excellent response to the disaster and the attack as such at the Dusit D2. And I'm fairly impressed by the level of coordination that was done, of course, in the grand scheme of things by all those involved. So the security machinery, the citizenry, and of course not forgetting the emergency response teams of sorts.
Adera, from the reaction point of view, it seems you're satisfied with how the security agencies acted. But from a prevention point of view, do you think this could have been prevented in any way?
There's always a halfway point in any catastrophic, of course, situation. They say the greatest mistakes that do happen always have a halfway point where they can be recalled, those situations can be renegotiated and perhaps averted altogether. But of course, this comes against the backdrop of the fact that we've had quite a long period of lull in this country where, of course, such spectaculars have not been witnessed in the recent past. So, of course, there's a lot of course, happenings that go on in the background that people are not privy to. And this, of course, we can give credence to the fact that there's been emboldened efforts in fighting terrorism across the borders in Somalia. And, of course, there's been a lot of strengthening of the intelligence infrastructure. Of course, we know that the leadership that did change at the top in terms of the National Police Service, the intelligence agency, of course, with a lot of input, of a lot of power and reinvigorated expertise in terms of training and equipment, have all shored up, efforts in the right direction. So, of course, the fact that Kenyans have not witnessed quite a bit of terror attacks within the country for quite some time is a product of that, of course, unseen investment in intelligence, of course, a lot of shored up efforts in equipping, resourcing of relevant agencies to take care of course, happenings before they actually, of course, these spectaculars before they actually happen. So a lot has been thwarted in the background. Going forward then, of course, to Dusit D2, there's a lot of stages to a development of an all-out terror attack like it did happen sadly yesterday from around 3 p.m. after 3 p.m. at Dusit D2. I'm now aware of the fact that a Kenyan by the name James was exposed to some kind of information which, of course, in our quarters we now know is a very vital piece of information. He saw individuals driving a car, KCN, that normally drove in, stood short of the barrier. Members of that particular car never came out of the car, and basically they went out, back out without probably doing things that would seem to be normal for such kind of visitation into an hotel complex that Dusit D2. This is perhaps, of course, one of those halfway points I'm talking about in terms of finding what's really vital, renegotiating your ways and means of approaches to that kind of finding, perhaps following it through with more in-depth analysis of the same, and you could be stopping terror in a process of development of an all-out terror attack like that happened at Dusit D2 yesterday, at a point where it's not caused maximum kind of loss like what we saw yesterday. So again, I'd want to reiterate, there's several processes that go into a terror planning processes that are aimed at, causing maximum pain, destruction, loss of lives at the end of the day. So the target selection, which, of course, identification and selection, which takes a terror cell or any an inglorious person of, the description of a terrorist to do. It may be something that would cause the maximum publicity. It may be something that would help divert government's attention and efforts in an area that they have interest in, so say Somalia. They may want to discredit government efforts and, of course, disenfranchise the populace against, of course, the leadership. So it's all those things that would inform target selection. Once that is done, then obviously they go into process where the target is surveilled for various reasons. Of course, intelligence gathering about the target to inform planning process, which is the third stage. Of course, the planning processes are very, very thoroughly done. They do not go out of their way riff-raff to fail and, of course, to prevent themselves from arriving at their objectives at the end of the day. So it must be informed by very thoroughly done target surveillance, target appreciation, and of course gathering enough intelligence. Of course, when people go in to visit this kind of premises, what's the human dynamics like? So human traffic, when is it thickest? Because they want to have as many people as possible cornered and of course butchered, as we did see in other past experiences. They may want to know the level of security clearances. They may want to know how the access controls are like. They may even want to and of course, they would want to know how the buildings are even configured in terms of the floor plans and all that stuff. Because when you go in, it's something that's already done, and people have in their brains a mental map of where they're going. So we can actually stop these processes at some point by shoring up our vigilance. And someone like James, if he'd offered that kind of information to someone, of course, where it would be taken up as actionable intelligence, we may have stopped this process right before it got to, of course, where we saw it during the execution stage, which is the first stage of a terror attack.
Many thanks, Byron Adera, Pioneer Kenya Special Force Officer and a security expert and consultant, joining me all the way from the coastal city of Mombasa. Of course, we are here giving